Live video. We are live from Talal Institute in Dubai. So just a quick check with my colleagues on whether you're able to see us and hear us. No? Yeah. I think it's not switching. Yeah. Okay. We are live here from Talal Institute in Dubai, and I think you can see us and hear us. Sorry about a small technical glitch because of which we got delayed. Quickly want to introduce again our guest for the day, Dr. Linda Rush, who is the Senior Vice President at Talal Institute and is also an Honorary Professorial Fellow from the University of Manchester, UK. Thank you, Linda, for being with us today.
It's a great pleasure. I'm really looking forward to having a conversation and sharing some things about our partnership and also giving some insight into the Institute.
Great, thank you so much. Thank you so much. So we are here to have a conversation about teaching as a career, and particularly about how teaching could potentially be a global career with mobility, cross-border, and opportunities that span across the globe. But before that, Linda is personally a very inspiring person who's had an interesting journey to where she is today. So I want to start there and ask you, Linda, for a couple of minutes about your own journey and then how you landed up doing what you're doing now.
Yeah, certainly. I've been an educator in education for 30 odd years now.
Yeah.
It's been just over 4 years that I've been in Dubai, and I feel very privileged to have the opportunity of being able to, in strategic partnership with GEMS Education, support an innovative way of growing teachers, good quality teachers. My background, I was a primary teacher when I first started out my own career.
What did you teach?
Well, I was primary, so I taught across
all
the
subjects,
curriculum,
yeah.
all the subjects. I became the youngest head teacher in England at the age of 27, which sounds ridiculous. You shouldn't really be assuming that kind of responsibility at that age. But it was in Liverpool in the UK, quite a socially, economically deprived area with some amazing children with amazing potential. And I felt committed to working with teachers in that context to help those young individuals realise their potential. And often, because they were quite challenging contexts, teachers often came and went rapidly, but I ended up spending a good sort of 8 to 10 years in that context. And it actually politicised me in many respects, and raised my awareness of the importance of education and giving individuals their confidence to actualise what their talents are.
Sure.
And then
sorry, just the volume, I think you might...
right, okay. So, so I ended up assuming some senior leadership roles in schools, and then I decided as part of that to study for my master's, and then soon after I decided to apply for a scholarship to do my doctorate, which was in this notion of more ableness. And cut a long story short, it was about really sort of positing this idea that everybody could be more able.
Okay.
And it was about how teachers being key determinants in allowing people to realise that ability. And then I made a decision to go into universities, and I've overseen teacher education within 4 universities, and my last role was at the University of Manchester as Head of Teacher Education and Director of Professional Learning. because during my time at universities, part of my love of learning doesn't just reside within the teacher education context, but helping people across all professions to develop themselves as learners and also to support others within their profession, be it within the clinical context or lawyers, as part of professional development within that domain. I started equipping people to teach out with teacher education, but within those specific professions. And since then I've moved on. So I've worked with little ones, consultants who are in the clinical practice, lawyers, and as part of universities, helping lecturers across all disciplines to be better at teaching their subjects, really.
Sure. And just a quick interruption. A teacher called Mukund Gimeri from Nepal is curious to know where you are from.
So I am from England. My father, however, is Indian, and my mother's Irish. And so I have most of my life worked and lived in the UK. And what's really attractive about here in Dubai is it is a microcosm of the world. It is such a multicultural context. And so to be able to test out and to work with individuals who have such a range of ethnicities and students themselves too is amazing.
Wow.
Amazing opportunity. Yeah.
And what is the purpose with which GEMS Group started Talal as an initiative which is, as I understand it, somewhat incubated in the group, but has its own independent standing in some ways. So what's the purpose of this initiative?
Okay, so the Talal Institute, Talal stands for Teacher, Learning and Leadership for All. And the for all bit is really important. It speaks to our wider aspirations or our greater aspirations of capacity building within whatever context we're operating, be it an individual wanting to become a teacher or a school or a group of schools. And GEMS Education is renowned for K-12, providing K-12 education, and its chairman, Sunny Barkey, has had a long-term desire to also grow teacher training as part of that organisation. Yes, that ecosystem. And currently there are over 7,000 teachers that work for GEMS Education within the UAE context. And GEMS, as a provider of schools within the UAE, is also wishing to support the greater good of the UAE too.
Sure.
So Talal has grown from what used to be an in-house professional development department within the GEMS Education to becoming an independent entity to help qualifying people to become teachers, as well as also enhancing people's existing qualifications. So we have lots of teachers from India who are qualified, but they're wanting to extend those qualifications so there's more portability, they've got international standing, and this helps with their career trajectory. Sure.
Yeah. And what are the kinds of careers that open up for teachers once they go through some of Talal's programs?
Well, so because Talal is in strategic partnership with GEMS Education, we have the most amazing resource of schools, from that of Indian curriculum, IB curriculum, American, British curriculum, of all phases. And we're able to, from day one, qualify somebody and then, all being well, then feed into being employed, even as part of their qualifying period. And from day one, we're looking at the leadership qualities of individuals, so that there's scope from becoming a teacher and leading their own learning to that of leading others, from that of middle, senior, principal ship. And not only that, because not everybody wants to be a leader in terms of becoming a principal, but actually being able to showcase themselves and be valued for being an expert teacher,
as a great teacher.
A great teacher. And so Talal encourages people to develop as part of a network model where they're able to mentor and coach and become known as experts in their field or areas of particular interest that individual has, and to be recognised for that, both in terms of standing and financially as well.
Got it. And do you have linkages with groups beyond GEMS, schools and groups beyond GEMS?
Yes, we now work with many other non-GEM schools, and currently we're helping over 2,500 non-GEMS teachers.
Oh wow! Okay, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, meeting either regulatory needs or as part of whole school strategic sort of development plans, supporting them with various aspects of either teacher sort of practice or whole school improvement.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And switching gears a little bit, and just to talk about the partnership that we have been working on. So as CENTA, we are of course very, very privileged to be in partnership with Talal on building global careers for teachers from India. And love to ask you, Linda, what made you look at CENTA as a partner in this journey?
So we were speaking earlier on, and it was now back in 2015 that I first was present at Ramya's one of Ramya's presentations around CENTA, and it struck me immediately how there was some synergy around our beliefs and values, around the importance of helping to grow good quality teachers, to value qualities that individuals are demonstrating in a manner that isn't always the case. There is a global shortage of good quality teachers. India and the UAE are very close in proximity. I think there's a wonderful opportunity for, be it novice, people just coming out of their graduate studies, to that of individuals who've already qualified and had experience in India, or for that matter here in the UAE, and to be given the opportunity to work in one another's countries and to be able to widen their experience and expertise accordingly. Certainly in terms of the UAE, just in the GEMS group of schools alone, 70% of our teachers are Indian teachers. And we're looking for helping to grow the quality of our teachers, both within our Indian curriculum schools and our British curriculum and American curriculum schools. And so, I sort of felt that often, for a whole load of reasons, people coming from India to teach here, very capable and well motivated. But it's quite a challenge when you're moving from one culture to another culture. And not only from one culture, as in being in India and so forth, and coming over to UAE, but then working in a school with a different curriculum often. And also different language, the English language being the sort of maybe the third, fourth language that an individual was speaking. So marrying up with CENTA, where we can help grow the confidence of individuals in their homeland, and to support the transition of coming over to ourselves, and complementing the credentialing that you do with our own high leverage teaching practice programs of learning, both at a teacher and leadership level. I felt it kind of was an opportunity there that needed exploring.
Absolutely. And to talk about the partnership a bit more specifically, we have these CENTA MicroCredentials, which provide credentials to teachers on specific sets of competencies. And Talal and GEMS is particularly interested in teachers who have cleared at least a couple of these micro-credentials, potentially around subject expertise, classroom communication. So at least a couple of the most important micro-credentials, so that they can come over then to GEMS in UAE, as well as the Talal apprenticeship-based program, because as I understand, these programs run along with employment, which is another very special aspect of the programs.
So here in the UAE, I think that the Talal Institute is quite unique in its approach to teacher training. From day one, people train within the school context. So we like I said, we're in strategic partnership with schools, both GEMS and non-GEMS. And so the sites of learning in terms of our training are the schools themselves. And from day one, you're working with identified expert teachers as mentors and coaches in fabulous contexts. With strategic support in a more formal sense to cover aspects of what it means to become an educator. And yes, the apprenticeship approach is about, unlike what is often the case, you get interviewed for a job in a 45-minute face-to-face or maybe online. The apprenticeship route allows individuals to get to know the school, the context, the culture, key personnel, and for them to get to know the individuals. And over a period of 10 months, that's the duration of a full-blown qualifying programme. People often, by the end of that period or before, have gained employment in a place that they feel comfortable with. And yes, I think that the subject expertise and, for example, the classroom communication that CENTA offers as core credentials make for a really good foundation on which we can build some higher level sort of learning around what it means to become an outstanding educator, and for that qualification to have portability across the Emirates, and if somebody wanted to go back to India. So the apprenticeship is really important, and at a macro level, the Institute is hoping to support the UAE, because it is about helping the UAE grow its own teachers here, and for them to see this as their home for a good time, and to put back what they've learned into the system. And if at some point they want to go back home and carry on that, then it's a win-win situation. That's what I think.
That's great. That's great. And for those who are watching, I mean, if there are any questions, you can start feeding them in. And meanwhile, so for us as CENTA, this partnership is very special in a couple of ways. Of course, is that as a certification body, it is very important that people who hold the certification get a range of opportunities, and a global opportunity like this is very exciting for those who hold the certification. At a bigger level, we are really hoping that for teachers in India, they can start seeing this profession as a global profession. And this is one step in that direction, the partnership with Talal, which allows teachers in India to start seeing this as a global profession, and where they can move to another geography to teach.
I think this is really, really crucial point you're making. This notion of a global teacher, I think, is really important. And so, as I've mentioned earlier, the context in which we're training here is a microcosm of the world in terms of the range of ethnicity on behalf of teachers and students, the curriculum, the range of curriculum opportunities that people have to grow and develop. We know that the more experiences that people have, the more nuanced and sophisticated in their thinking. People become empowered. The curriculum, whether it be on a qualifying course that we offer at Talal, or whether it be on a continuing professional learning certified course, we base our curriculum on what we call the high leverage teaching practices. These are 19 practices that, from the University of Michigan, what works, are deemed to be the fundamentals of helping somebody to become an outstanding practitioner. We concertina these down to 8 high leverage teaching practices, and we allow people to engage with these practices ranging from understanding student needs to developing one's understanding and practice around assessment for learning or organisation and behaviour or student thinking and so forth. We offer up experiences both traditionally face-to-face, online, through simulation training in Arabic, in English, and this is all about, this is curriculum agnostic, and actually I'm loath to say that we can, you know, move to just global without recognising what the individual brings with them, because depending on where we come from, the cultural, social, historical context will really inform what the lens we look through and how we see the world. But what we're trying to do here, we bump you up close with a whole range of beliefs and values, such that there's a kind of a mutual respect around the individual as well as the whole. And I think something quite special emerges as a result of that. Over and above than if, for example, I was, because I have, you know, overseen teacher education in England, and you know, it tends to be, in one sense, less rich than what we're seeing here. And that idea of being able to move more fluidly from one country or culture to the next, I think is important.
Yeah. So we have an interesting question from, we have 2-3 interesting questions which are interrelated, so I'm just going to take them together. There's one that asks, is B.Ed necessary for teaching in UAE? And Linda, correct me if I'm wrong, on one hand, a lot of the recruiting from India does happen with B.Ed people, but on the other hand, the interesting role that Talal is playing and the CENTA Talal Partnership is potentially playing is that there could be teachers with a CENTA MicroCredential without a B.Ed who go through Talal qualification in UAE and teach here. Is that correct?
Absolutely. So Talal is our training. It's a graduate institute, so everybody has to have a first degree.
Yes. Which is any graduate degree.
Any graduate degree, and in fact we're very welcoming of all subject areas, and we are approved to be able to take individuals who are graduates. There's a process that people go through in order to be offered a place. It is rigorous, because it's important that people are of the right quality, and that's not just about intellectual standing, it's about other capacities too, to do with resilience and resourcefulness and reflectiveness. Commitment is really key, and we can train you from day one as a graduate without a B.Ed in schools with contrasting placements over a 10-month period, and you can secure a qualification to teach in the UAE. Which is KHDA approved and also internationally benchmarked. And if some people wanted even more portability, some of our provision is validated by Liverpool Hope University in the UK. So it
allows you to teach in the UK.
And it allows you to teach in the UK, and it's at international postgraduate and professional levels, UK level 7 and level 6. And we try and make it as affordable as possible. If a principal, because often we have principals who are part of the interview process, and if you come across as a really strong individual, you could be chosen by that principal and from day one be seen as somebody that they support going through that training, hence the apprenticeship name. And they might even support with some of the payment,
I met one person today who's going through that.
It is an exciting opportunity. In fact, that's what we're wanting to do, is to encourage graduates early on who are thinking about becoming teachers as part of their career, and giving them the opportunity to become qualified with us. And as CENTA, again, you know, as part of our mission, we want to increase the number of people who enter teaching as a career. And sometimes these are people who haven't yet done a B.Ed, or absolutely.
And to that extent, you know, we as far as the CENTA MicroCredentials are concerned, while in India, of course, it's an additional qualification, but in a partnership like this, it can very well be the route to entering teaching.
Very much so. I mean, going back to an earlier point I made, moving abroad is not an easy thing. I did it 4 years ago, and it really, you learn a lot about yourself. And so to have some support on the ground in your familiar territory, such as with CENTA, around some core credentials, that then feeds through into us, Talal, and us getting to know you as people through your relationship with CENTA. We can then nurture you here, and over the 10-month period, you can blossom in a way that you wouldn't necessarily so if you were making the leap into unfamiliar territory without the support. Quite frankly as well, it really helps from our end, because the schools feel that you are able to grow more quickly and readily, and be really good teachers as part of their staffing base.
Yeah. So someone called Harsha has asked whether there are non-teaching roles because she doesn't hold a B.Ed, but I think we have sort of answered that it is possible to go through the Talal qualification without a B.Ed. Other than that, of course, Talal as well as CENTA, if I'm right, don't look at non-teaching roles. We are primarily focused on teaching.
We are primarily focused on teaching. That said, if somebody were interested in a teaching assistant role or a learning support role, we could support with placements in our schools. And actually, we do have quite a few people who transit from being a teaching assistant or a person who is supporting individual learner needs into becoming a full-blown classroom teacher. Because sometimes people like to just get a foothold into the sort of school environment and get a feel for what it's like before they make a conscious decision of becoming a full-blown teacher, and we can support that too. We do have various routes, so we can support people being secondary, high-level cycle 3-4 teachers. Primary, we have early years specialist routes, and of course we have Arabic specialist routes too.
Okay, so someone called Aniket wants to know, firstly, when do schools in UAE usually hire? So maybe we can just answer that part of it.
So depending on the curriculum, the academic years start in September, and schools will start recruiting from, I don't know, November, December, January, February. Then we've got our Indian curriculum schools where the academic year starts March, and so they will start recruiting now, if not before. To be honest, schools are always needing teachers. The need for teachers here is great, like it is everywhere. And Talal, we have 2 points in a year where we recruit. September, we have cohorts starting, and we have cohorts starting in January. It is likely that we will start having 3 points in the year where we recruit. Schools, we know, principals are always needing people, good quality people feeding through into their systems. So throughout the year, really.
And I think Aniket has also asked, how do I build my resume so that I appeal to schools there? So I think I should just do a pitch saying clear the CENTA MicroCredential. But I think that's so jokes apart. I'm sure there are a range of different ways to build your resume, Aniket, in India. But at least one of the things that we do as CENTA is to benchmark you on a very rigorous standard through our micro-credentials, and an organization like Talal accepts that as an entry point. After, of course, you go through a final interview with them. So we have another question from someone called Ranjit Kaur, which is, do I need to have an IB experience in order to teach in Dubai?
No. But if you wanted one, we could give you one. Because of our relationship. You see, Talal Institute has the most unique resource in its partnership with GEMS Education, particularly, but increasingly so with the wider group of schools out with GEMS. But the reality is, we can help you develop your experience as an IB educator, as well as if you wanted other experience too. So no, you don't need to be an IB. The reality is there are a whole range of different curriculums being offered here in the UAE.
So yes, I mean UAE has CBSE schools, has IB schools, American curriculum schools, British curriculum.
And increasingly so, schools are offering dual curriculums.
Yeah. And on that note, I mean, I also just want to add that as far as the CENTA certification is concerned, it is completely curriculum agnostic. So we test for a certain set of competencies, and we test for the same set of competencies irrespective of which curriculum school you are applying for. And naturally, certain schools, based on either the board or based on the individual school's value, might prefer certain micro-credentials from the ones that we offer. So for example, a lot of schools, including GEMS in UAE, want the subject expertise and the classroom communication micro-credentials as core micro-credentials that they would like people to have at the point of entry. But the micro-credentials are entirely agnostic to the specific board or curriculum.
And interestingly so, in terms of Talal, there is a common core curriculum, regardless of level of learning and whether it's a qualification or a certification that we're offering. There are some common features across all our teacher training and leadership development. All of our learning is cross-mapped against the teacher standards within the UAE, and then also reference to the UK. But in actual fact, we have GEMS Global Teacher Standards too.
Yeah.
We are internationally benchmarked. We do look at what levels of learning are within specific to the UAE, so that it can be cross-mapped back to India, back to Canada, back to America, and you know, the content's one thing, but it's also the form of delivery, the way in which we deliver, and the sites of learning, which happens to be the schools. And in one sense, I'm not going to say it's agnostic, curriculum agnostic, but it does tend to try and cut across. There are principles underpinning what we believe are cutting edge thinking around what it means to be a good educator.
Sure. Somebody called Joel Xavier D'Souza is asking, can you please explain how GEMS hiring of CENTA certified teachers works? So I guess, I mean, and Linda, please add to this. So what we've been doing is, so by the way, I mean, GEMS hires through multiple routes. So I just want to be also clear about that CENTA is not the only route through which GEMS hires, but it's one of the routes. And people who are interested in CENTA certification for joining GEMS in UAE or for joining other schools that give weightage to this certification can just apply on the CENTA website for whichever micro-credentials they'd like to do. The micro-credentials take place probably 7 or 8 times or 9 times in the year. So one can choose whichever month one wants. Now with Talal and GEMS, what we've been doing is, when candidates reach out to us saying that I'm specifically taking the micro-credential for the purpose of joining GEMS in UAE through a Talal program, then we connect Talal and the candidate after they've gone through the micro-credential, and the candidate gives their report or score to Talal, which we as CENTA can verify, and then Talal takes the process from there. And if you want to add to that, Linda.
And the initial conversations take place online. We will, and it can be synchronous or asynchronous, the way in which we engage with you. And if you were interested, we would be able to share those details. If that initial exchange goes well, we would then look at matching you up with a placement here in the UAE. Your details would be shared with the principal, and we would then look at how we would support you and bring you over, either on a salaried position, depending on how much experience you bring with you, or on a non-salaried route. Of course, there are some logistics then which would need working through in terms of, you know, your accommodation and so forth. Ideally, I would like to think we could support as many people coming on some kind of a basic salaried route to begin with, in order to complete your training over 10 months, because then the visa situation and so forth is a lot easier to sort out.
Sure.
So the idea of trying to encourage people to come on a salaried position would be really good.
Sure.
That does require people to have some experience
and competencies.
Yeah. But then again, we're open to, like I said earlier, offering up from fresh graduate level. If there were sufficient graduates interested in coming, we would be able to work through, or I'd like to think we could work through how, in terms of some of the logistics of settling here as well as train here, should be worked through.
Sure. So someone called Salima Suratia is asking, is the profession of teaching well paid in UAE compared to India? It's a broad question, of course, but I don't know if you want to comment a bit on how the salary levels work, or even if not specific numbers, but...
Yeah, I mean, so the salary levels depend on how much experience you bring with you, the level of your qualification. If you're an unqualified teacher qualifying through a salaried route, the level of salary obviously is going to be less. My understanding is that, I mean, it depends on different schools as well. There isn't a uniform salary given. Some schools will offer a little bit more, some less. But I think it's comparable with that of India. Of course, the cost of living is different here.
So you're saying sort of lifestyle to lifestyle, it could be comparable, hopefully.
Yeah, to be quite honest, I couldn't give you a general sort of response, because there are so many private schools here.
Sure. And I believe accommodation is often taken care of by the
if you're a salary teacher here, that comes with benefits in terms of accommodation, and there would be other benefits too. There's absolutely no doubt about that. So it's not just about the salary. It's about the package that comes with it too.
Sure. And the long-term career opportunity.
Yeah, and that's the thing, you see. There is the opportunity to develop and grow, including financially, in a manner that I think is rare. Certainly if you're part of a particular group such as GEMS, but even more broadly within the UAE context, I think the opportunities to develop here and then be able to move on elsewhere, to broaden your knowledge and expertise is great.
Yeah. I'm seeing two other questions from someone called Shivraj. One is, does Talal help me with my visa?
Does Talal help you with visa?
Yeah.
It's an interesting one, that, because Talal, the level of learning we're offering, which is essentially at postgraduate level, it's beyond bachelor's of education, beyond BEd. It's higher than that, our level of learning. Although we do that level too. We are being encouraged to, if we have sufficient people interested in training to teach with us from elsewhere, to put through and support student visas, and that would be as part of a non-salaried route. If you are on a salaried teacher training route, the visa would come with the salaried position.
It's an automatic one. Okay. There is also a question asking, how do I prepare for the CENTA MicroCredentials? So I'll just take that one, which is that, so the CENTA MicroCredentials are very linked to teaching practice. And if you are a BEd student, then ideally many of the concepts which are covered in the microcredentials may have been part of the BEd program, except that we do cover them in a highly practice-oriented manner in the microcredentials, which some of the BEd programs might be doing while others may not be. If you are a non-BEd graduate, and in which case also you can apply for the CENTA MicroCredentials and for the Talal qualification, then ideally, you may want to go through some understanding of teaching practices as you apply for the micro-credentials. And as CENTA, we have now started mapping a bunch of learning resources to each micro-credential, so that at your own pace, in a personalized manner, you can go through some of these resources and use them for learning as you apply for the micro-credentials.
Can I just add, there might be some of you listening in now who are residing in the UAE, and you're interested in checking on your subject expertise. And I know with the upcoming teacher permit and licensing requirements, for many of you, subject expertise is, well, there is an independent subject specialist exam that is required to be taken. So there may be a lot of you out there who would be interested in CENTA's credential in subject expertise. You have 21 subject expertise?
We offer all our micro-credentials in 21 subject areas from primary to senior secondary.
Yeah, so I think there might be a lot of interest in teachers currently residing in the UAE who would be interested in engaging with one of the subject credentials. It's something. Often, for example, in England, you have what's called subject knowledge enhancement courses, because we know there's people out there who are interested in becoming a particular teacher, but their degree is in one subject.
Some other subject.
Yeah, they might have done engineering and they're wanting to become a mathematics teacher. So you do these as a precursor to starting your training. You do a subject knowledge enhancement course, and I could see how CENTA's subject expertise credentials could act as a priming, if you like, for individuals who would like to become a maths teacher or a geography or physics.
So in fact, it's very interesting you mentioned that, because several schools in India are using this for transitions from one subject to the other, saying that you can transition to the other subject if you finish your subject expertise micro-credential in the new subject. So someone called Rocky Miller is saying, I think good teachers from India should grab the opportunity. So thank you for that, Rocky.
Thank you, Rocky. Thank you. I think I know Rocky.
Okay. So transitioning, and I'm just conscious of the time here, just transitioning to one other point, which is that we're also very glad to share with whoever's watching that Talal and CENTA have decided to partner for the Teaching Professionals Olympiad in UAE, which is an annual competition for teachers held on the second Saturday of December every year. It's on December 8th this year, and we hold it in 50 cities across India, as well as Dubai and Abu Dhabi in UAE. And Talal is going to be the lead partner in UAE for the competition. And Linda is kindly offering a few winners the opportunity to do a Talal program on a scholarship. So Linda,
absolutely. I think it's a complete privilege to be part of this initiative that CENTA has started. I really do think it's a fabulous opportunity for all our Indian teachers, and I haven't thought through in finite detail yet, but for sure I will be making sure that Talal offers up some scholarships for those who happen to do very well and are winners. So I'm very much encouraging and pleased to be part of the initiative, and certainly Talal will support.
Thank you. Thank you. We look forward to it. I think we really look forward to Teaching Professionals Olympiad becoming an interesting competition for teachers in UAE. And in India, it's a community of more than 35,000 teachers.
Incredible.
From more than 2,000 locations across India.
Well, I'd love to see how we can replicate that here in the UAE. I think to celebrate talent
Yeah.
and expertise is really crucial, and it will feed in on itself, and I think, you know, talent will grow talent.
Yeah. So conscious of the time, in case we have any last question, maybe one more we can take, but I think we have covered most of the questions. Sometimes in the scroll we end up missing a couple of questions, and if we did, we will probably answer them on text. But I think there aren't further questions, and with that, thank you very much, Linda, for being with us today, and wonderful to be here in Talal Institute, and wonderful to see all the work that you're doing live. I got to see it in a few schools and classrooms today, and really exciting.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you.